to bring him in and to examine the physiological pressures and the emotional pressures on a patient like that. And when I started looking for research on what that patient sensitivity training session would be, all of my research, if you just Googled it, it all came up as all of the patient sensitivity programs were based around bariatric patients and obese patients because it's such an epidemic. And there are 3 million morbidly obese people in the world today. And the logistical problems and the emotional problems in dealing with these patients is something that every single medical professional I spoke to had a story about, had an experience with, and was dealing with. And so we sort of felt like we were on the right track from that point.
Thank you. Karen, how did diabetes?
Well, on Army Wives, we were sitting in the room and trying to come up with conflict for our, for our characters, which is story. And for Claudia Joy, Kim Delaney's character, if you're familiar with the show, she's very strong, always together, unflappable. And we wanted to come up with a situation that she would have to face that maybe she couldn't just, solve with her resolve. And we thought of, there are people on our staff and who have loved ones and family members who are dealing with diabetes. But we had thought about, okay, a medical condition, breast cancer, lupus, MS, but we wanted something that, I don't want to say wasn't terminal, but that something could be managed, but also managed, but even if you're a together kind of person like Claudia Joy, even if you're doing the right thing with your medicine and your food and your exercise, you can't always manage it. So we wanted to throw her something, that conflict in herself, like, why can't I handle this? Why did I get this? And you saw in the clip, she wanted to hide it from her friends. I can take care of this. But with this kind of disease, you need to be able to have support around her, and that's somebody that she was always very strong and needed to reach out to people. And it caused conflict with her friends, with her husband, with her child, and with her and herself. And so it was something we wanted to do because other people on the staff had loved ones. They had stories about their own loved ones. So we knew we had to do it right and be responsible in how we did it. And also just to dispel the myths about type 1 versus type 2, that you don't have to be obese. You don't have to be impoverished, not be able to take care of yourself to have type 2 diabetes.
So what do you hope the viewers walk away with after they've seen an episode with a TV health storyline, something you really invested in, done a lot of research on? So that's one question. The other is, do you get feedback from viewers? Do they contact you? What do you hear?
Well, if I could just start with this one. We do hear from our fans and on the blogs, and it really hit home with a lot of people who are dealing with this. But it also hit in our own backyard. One of our young prop guys was working on the show, and he would get Claudia Joy, Kim Delaney, glasses of water, bottles of water during the storyline of her diabetes so that you would see her drinking and monitoring things. And as production was going on, he started seeing something that looked really familiar to him. And he, as a production went on and the scripts were coming out and he was reading that, he realized that his own father was drinking a lot of water, was going to the restroom a lot, he was tired, he was fatigued, he was irritable, and he wasn't that kind of person. And he was like, hey, Dad, we're doing this storyline on diabetes. I really think you should go to the doctors. And you know how men love going to the doctors. But he convinced his father to go, and his father was diagnosed with diabetes. I'm happy to say he's doing well, but because of our own show, somebody on our set was able to recognize it on somebody else. Yeah.
Well, in terms of what we want people to take away, I think TV has a way of not normalizing the unusual, but when you see it in your own life, you recognize it. I mean, I can absolutely remember, the son of the chief of staff on St. Elsewhere who was autistic. I remember that as a small child. I remember thinking, oh, what's that? Being really curious, and that was quite a portrayal of mental illness in primetime medical television on a personal storyline, and just things like that where TV, you may not know somebody that's schizophrenic, but you may meet one in your life, or you may meet someone whose brother or father or something like that is schizophrenic, and what we can do to, destigmatize it, it's just part of the landscape of life, and that I feel is the best thing to take away the fear, to really to pull that away from it and say, this is just somebody who has a medical problem, and we can treat them and love them. And, you know, I think that's the best we can do. And in terms of viewer feedback, I write a blog every week. You know, our shows always have like ethical dilemmas. So, you know, I always write like the sides of the story, and then always write like, what would you do? And then people go on, they blog, they post back at me. And I got told really early, like, don't read people's responses. Don't do that. But of course, I have to do it. And people get very passionate. They share personal stories. They get angry if we didn't do it the way they wanted us to do it. And I'm really happy for that. I want the show to spark conversations for other people. And I don't want it to be benign. I'm glad that people see both sides of the issue and are wrestling with it. So that's nice.
I think it's true. On Grey's last year, we did a long arc on one of our doctors dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder from the time that he spent as a trauma surgeon in Iraq. And one of the most gratifying bits of feedback I've ever heard about the show was that it came from one of our wardrobe people whose aunt had been watching the show and started calling around to friends saying, watch what they're doing on Grey's, because it's everything we're dealing with at home with our husbands who've returned and wives who've returned from the war. And the idea that it was creating a community that could have a discussion and starting a conversation about things that are really, really difficult to talk to, I thought was just as gratifying as it gets.
It's really interesting.
I think for us, too, what you were saying really resonated for me, because so often people feel isolated by the troubles that they're suffering, and they feel alone, and they feel that no one else has this. When we were doing the initial research for the death storyline, there was a woman on the panel at the curriculum seminar whose husband had died when their son was 7. He was a second grader. And she told the story of the first day he went back to school after the funeral. She said, I'm going to go in with you and tell your teacher what's happened. And he said, oh, Mom, please don't do that. I don't want anybody to know. And that really stuck with us as an image. And so we have, and with the family stand together, the African-American family that you saw, someone laid off from a auto plant, and this is such a positive family, and they're working together, and he's tutoring in the school, he's looking for work. But the other thing we try to do is give families language that they can use. That young girl talking about wants versus needs, that's really helpful dealing with young children. And we do get, as you've all said, we get extraordinary feedback from people. I went to an American Legion conference to accept an award a year ago, and this man who was literally 1.5 feet taller than me came over to me and said, are you the lady from Sesame Street? And I said, yes. And he started to cry. His tears were dripping onto my shoulders. And he talked about how he had been a soldier in the Gulf War, and when he came home, he didn't know how to deal with his family, and he had lost his family, and how he insisted when his son was deployed that he watch the Sesame Street show, and that it had made such a difference in his family. And everything that we're doing, we all have this kind of impact, and it's such an honor really to hear it from people. As my mother, who's sitting here in the front row, my beautiful mother, Patricia Barry, taught me, the greatest honor that we can have is to give back to the world, to make the world a little bit a better place. So thanks, Mom.
Michelle?
We do get a lot of feedback from the message boards. We've got, when we have consumer events, people tell us that we help them. They get a lot of information from our novelas. See, it's not just how everybody bad-mouths novelas. They're actually great information tools. And it's very satisfying. I know that the writers do appreciate, and I show them all of the feedback that we get so that they can continue writing, and spurs them on. So, yes.
The feedback on SVU I get secondhand. Mariska will send me letters that she gets personally, and she plays a sex crimes detective, and she sent ones where a girl told her that an episode had given her the courage to testify in court against her abuser, and another one where a girl had been abused for years and she finally had the courage to report it because of the show. So, that's great. Same show.
Ditto.
This is a question that not everyone has to answer, but maybe some of you might want to answer. There's often tension between accuracy and the needs of entertainment. I mean, sometimes the incubation period for disease is 3 weeks, but your story takes 24 hours. So I'm just curious, how does accuracy play into what you're doing? Do you need to compromise from time to time? What are the things where do you draw the lines? What kind of principles do you use when you decide you need to do that? Anyone?
Well, I'll answer if you want. I mean, for us at private practice, the one thing we will not compromise on is we will not cure a disease that is incurable, ever. And we won't compromise something that could send a bad public health message, because we do take that responsibility very, very seriously. Yes, your disease might accelerate a little faster. Your test results might come back in 1 minute.
That's real life, though, right?
Yeah. Those things we do, or else it would be like, and 4 weeks from now, this patient comes back, and we have a vague test result. So though we always compromise timeline. We will not compromise the message. That's the most important thing. And of course, we simplify. ER set an incredible standard for using medical language in television, and we use some of the words, and then we use a lot of layman's words too, so that you don't get lost in the words. But we owe a great debt to ER for bringing that into our language so much. Thank you.
Anybody want to also comment on that, and also the question you just raised, which is it's sometimes a lot to ask actors to say these kinds of things, and how you deal with that. Anybody?
Well, on our show, we're lucky to have people like Moira and our medical researcher Meg Marinas, who makes outstanding pronunciation guides for our actors. It's actually fun to figure out the ways to stay medically accurate and then describe a disease or what's happening inside the human body in a way that is active and that people can understand immediately and can feel the urgency of. And that's sort of always the challenge. But it also is the ability to do that kind of research and put that kind of to put that language into the show is twice as fun for me. And it's our researchers that we owe all that to. They're the ones who get the actors up to speed.
So, yes, it is incredibly difficult. I am usually the person to go to the writers and say, oh, listen, we would like you to do folic acid. And they go, what? So and luckily we can get the information to them, and they incorporate it. But I think there is a compromise. There is a compromise on any issue, because as they tell me, we're not a medical show, we're a telenovela. And, we deal with passion and romance, and there's some issues that are a little bit tougher to manage, but I think we do a really good job, and I think the writers do a good job, and as well as the subject matter experts as well. They're really, they find ways, and they work with the writers, so it's difficult. But
this is always my favorite night of the year, both to be able to honor excellence and also to hear the stories behind how you get to be that way. So I promise to get you home in time, but before you do, please really join me in the most warm congratulations to all of our finalists.